In this video, I'm going to show you the latest method that we've come up with for doing a Scan2Cut project in Skycuts. What is a Scan2Cut process? Well, it's when you have, basically a piece of paper like this or a piece of cardstock or whatever, in which you have some images, but you don't have any registration marks already present on this piece of paper, but you need to accurately cut out, around these images. And so that's the process we're covering today. Also, I want to quickly thank Sandra Create in Spain, who made the original Scan2Cut video that helped me learn how to do the process. And I also want to thank Paul Zinga, who came up with the rectangle frame method that I'm showing today. Here are 4 reasons why I like this new method. First of all, it's as accurate as any of the other Scan2Cut methods that have been presented before. Secondly, you only have to use the first screen, so it makes it a little bit faster. Thirdly, you create a reusable template up front. And so that template, you don't have to be reprinting things every time you want to do a different project. And then finally, it works for both the automatic and manual print plus cut cutters, at least the ones that I support, which include like all of the K&K models, the Skycut models, the StarCraft Solo, if using Skycuts, and then also the Siser Romeo and Juliet, again, if you're using Skycuts. What are the requirements? Well, you need a printer that you're going to be using initially to create the template. You need a phone that has a camera with it so that you can take a photo of your project. You need some masking tape in order to make sure that things don't shift on the cutting mat between photographing and then before you're actually doing the cut. And then finally, you need to make sure that your cutter already is already accurately calibrated for the print and cut process. So with that, let's get started. So the first step in creating the template is to just add a large rectangle, although it can be any size you want, as you'll see through your own experience. If you're just doing little bitty images, you're not going to need a rectangle this large. But I went ahead and made it so it'd be kind of like a decent size on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock that I'll be printing on. And then make it a size that's easy to remember. So over here, I made it 7 inches by 10 inches. Very easy to remember. And in fact, I'm going to write it onto the printout after I get it made. Now then, this rectangle is going to serve as your registration marks because you can use a full rectangle versus just using like the little L shapes. So this makes it really easy in terms of, making this applicable to all different cutters and not having to worry about adding the specific registration marks. The only thing that you'll want to do is over here on the fill and stroke panel, you'll see I set the filled in none so that, there's no fill color here. And then the stroke, I've got it set to black. And then for the width, I have it set to 4. And 4 is what you'll want to use on those auto registration mark system cutters, such as the Skycuts, the Solos, the Siser cutters, where there's a camera that's going to come up and automatically read the corner. If you have one of the older cutters, like some of the Klic-N-Kut models that have like the LED light that you're manually moving after it gets near that corner, then you might want to set the width here down to 2, because 2 is going to more closely match what you're used to working with. And either one should work fine. Your photo should be able to still take, a very good photo, and you'll be able to identify the corners of the 4, even if the stroke is only set to 2. So at this point, you're going to basically put it in your printer and print it out. Now, one thing about printing, make sure if you're, use like cardstock, because that way you can use it multiple times and take it, kind of pull it gently off the mat. And so then, that way it's reusable and you won't have to be printing one of these for every project. So also when you print it, make sure it's secure in your printer because you don't want it to print crooked. You don't want it to come down and go, oh, wow, yeah, it printed kind of lopsided. You don't want that to happen. All right. The second thing you're going to want to do then is you're going to want to cut out an opening in this that's, a little bit of ways from the outer printed reg marks. And this opening, you can cut this by hand, like using, a craft knife and a ruler, or you can cut it from the software itself. Just make sure, you're in WYSIWYG mode and you set your origin in the right corner so that you can come and cut this out. And then you're going to be left with your printed rectangle and then an opening in the middle. And that opening is where you'll be putting your scrap of paper or your little sheet of paper or whatever, or sheet of cardstock that has your image that you want to cut out on it. So now you're ready to place your template onto your cutting mat, and you want to put it on there and make sure it's nice and straight along one of the grids. You want things to be very straight in terms of the template. Then you can place your shape, or whatever you're cutting out of, you can place it in the middle, somewhere in the opening, and it doesn't have to be straight. It could be totally, lopsided. It doesn't matter. It could be upside down. That part doesn't matter. Just this, the template. And of course, you can see up here, I wrote 7 inches by 10 inches on my template because later I'm going to need those 2 numbers. So before I do anything else, I want to make sure I have the everything taped down, because again, it's so critically important that your cardstock not fall off, either piece fall off the cutting mat after photographing and before printing. So I'm going to add tape so that I don't have to worry about that. Then take the best photo that you can. Make sure you're a bit over the project, kind of like I am right here when I took this photo, so that you're not taking it at a broad angle. You want to kind of take it as much as you can straight over it. Doesn't matter if there's like some shadowing, like you can see some shadowing here below, my printed image. That's perfectly fine, because it's not going to be printed again. You're going to be actually cutting from something that's already printed. So all you need to do is just make sure you have this rectangle clearly within the photo, and take it again as roughly as straight as you can. There will be compensation made by the program that it's not perfectly straight or that it's slightly an angle, but the better the photo, you tend to get better results. Okay, so then the next step, back in SCAL, go to File, Scan2Cut, click on Load Image, and find your photograph. Select the photo, click on Open, and wait while it loads. Okay, now then, what I do is I usually bring my window up here, and then I enlarge it to make it nice and big, whatever I can use on my computer screen. But you may be able to see it just fine. You're not my age. So anyway, so then once I get the photo up here, before I do anything, I find that the easiest way to help find these marks is to drag these little red squares right up close to the corners of your rectangle that's printed. Okay, like that. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're getting ready to make them perfect. Just get them close, and then they're easier to find. Then you can zoom in, right? And you can zoom way, way in. And the idea is to get the green lines. As the green lines leave the corner, they're right in the very middle of the black mark. So if you hold the Shift key, you can move with more precision. All right, and see, I'm just moving this around until I feel like that those green lines are roughly in the middle. Now, don't worry out here. There's going to be distortion that came from the photo. It's more important about right when it leaves that corner. Okay, and then also it's going to be askew because of the next corner where it's not perfect. So then we come across to here. Okay, and then again, I'm holding the Shift key and dragging this down. Oh, one thing I forgot. I'm going to go ahead and do this right now. Uncheck this use custom marks because you're not going to be using them. And right here, you're going to be putting in that 7 by 10. Okay. Now then, I forgot to mention, if your photo comes in, if you took your photo portrait style and it comes in landscape style, where it's like, left to right, your image is basically sideways, reverse these, change this to 10 to 7. All right. Because you need to make sure that whatever the orientation is of how the photo comes in matches with the width and the height. All right, so that's why I have this 7 by 10. So now I'm going to zoom back in again and scroll over and find this mark and make sure that it looks like it's centered. And again, zoom, 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 zoom. Okay, and then again, I'm going to hold the Shift key and get it right in that corner and make sure those green lines look like they're centered. And then let's then come down to here and move over. And again, hold the Shift key, drag to the center. And this process is what will compensate for the fact that your photo was taken at a very slight angle. And it also indicates, it tells the program exactly what is 7 by 10 on the printout, because that's the whole reason you want your printout to be nice and straight on the mat, and your marks at your rectangle at a certain particular size. Okay, so then I click on OK, and then when I click on OK, it brings it in, it puts it in this corner. Now don't touch anything. You don't want to move it. Leave it exactly where it is, and immediately come up here to the trace window, because now then you need to vectorize your shapes. So when this window opens, I want to crop out all of this stuff that I don't want, like the cutting mat, and then because really all I want to trace are just my images. So from this none, I change this to crop, and then I can start dragging this down. And this is another window that I can move up here and I can drag to make larger, which makes it much easier to see, again, especially at my age. All right, and now then let's move this back over to here, and let's move this up. And I want, since I'm going to have a little bit of a contour, which we always recommend, that helps, compensate for any error that occurred during this process, I'm going to make sure that I leave some room. So watch out for, how close you bring these lines in, when you're cropping things out. Okay, and then at least I think that's important. Now then, click on blackout, click on update preview to see how the trace is looking. Don't forget up here is show source image. If you scroll this down, then you can better see just your trace lines. And I can tell that I need to come up a little ways on my, up here on my contrast. And of course I'm using monochrome and contrast because I'm just doing a print and cut trace. All right, and then I still have a little bit, but actually I don't have to worry about it. If you have a little bit of the lines there that you're having problems, go ahead and add your offset. Now this offset is only available in Skycuts 6. If you're using Skycuts 5 or 4, which is fine, you can use those and use the same process, but you'll need to make sure that you'll have to do your tracing, and then you'll have to go and use path, offset, path in order to create your contour that goes around that allows for some error. In terms of size, probably 0.05 will work. And then let's do an update preview and see how this looks. Okay, great. So now then I don't have to worry about the fact I had some tracing that was going on the inside. That's now gone, and I can see that I have the cut line. It's just a little bit of a contour around the outside of those images. So then I click on OK. Now, if you're using Skycuts 5 or 4, and you're at this point and you weren't able to add that contour, that 0.05 contour, this is where you would select the cut layer. Okay, and with that cut layer selected, you would go to path, offset path, okay, turn off inset if it's on, make sure that's not enabled, okay, then most likely you'll want to use a rounded shadow, and this is where you would then put in that 0.05, okay, and then click on OK, and then that would give you that wider path offset. Now here you can see that, I ended up with it like welding onto there, but that's only because I already had an offset, on there. So, but that's something also to consider when you're stamping your images. If you're going to be adding an offset, don't have your images too close together. All right, and then you'll see this. Basically you're ready to go. You don't have to do anything further. You're just ready to go ahead and, and you don't have to worry about your reg marks or anything like that over here. They're basically, everything is based on the fact that this rectangle are the reg marks. Don't move it, okay? Because that's setting the actual location that the software wants to use for the reg marks. From there, you'll just go to your cutter window. Make sure you previously have already determined what are the best cut settings to use, and then you click on print and cut and you proceed from there. And of course, I can see these are the two shapes that are going to cut. And the results should be really good. We've been doing a lot of testing of this the last few weeks and trying to refine different methods of doing it. This is my preferred method right now. There are other methods where, you could actually print reg marks directly onto your original printout. If your original printout is something you can feed through your printer, like 8.5 by 11. There's some other methods. Sandra Create in Spain, you can go to her YouTube site and you can see some of the new videos that she's making showing her different methods that she also likes to use. This is the one I like because once you're finished, again, that template, you're ready. The template is still in your mat. You could just pull off what you cut off, right? The waste and the little thing, and you're ready to go for your next project. So you could do project after project after project, just plop it on there, take a photo, add some tape to your new little scrap of paper, take a photo, do the print and cut, repeat. Rinse and repeat. So anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. And I'm eager to see some results from some of you out there who've been eagerly wanting a slightly simpler method to do this. And of course, this video is long because I talk a lot, so please forgive me for that.